Good morning, everybody. It's Monday the 8th of July and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just starting my morning run a little bit later than I normally start, but the sky's grey and overcast and it's trying to a little bit of showering, but just get on and run and see what happens. Now, today I thought I would talk about a bloke named Nedd Brockman. In January of this year, I made a couple of videos about this bloke. They were called Showing Up Part 1 and Part 2. And they were called that because he'd written a book with that title, Showing Up, that I had read over the Christmas period, and the videos was reviewing the book. Now, I hadn't heard of him before I read his book, and yet he'd done something quite remarkable. He, in 2022, had decided he would attempt to break the record for running across Australia from the west coast to the east. The record stood at something like 43 days morning, and he figured out that if he was going to break the record, he'd have to run something like, I think, 80 kilometres a day. Now, at the time I made those videos, I was asking viewers, what's the most number of kilometres you've run in a day, or a week, or a month? And I think my figure was something like 70. That was the most I run in a week, and he was going to do that every day for 43 days. He's going to do it for two reasons. One is he wanted to attempt to break the record, and secondly, he wanted to raise money for homeless people. Now, you can go back, I'll go to my channel and watch those videos and hear more about him. He finished the run, but sadly didn't break the record. What was significant among all the other things was the fact that he hadn't even been a runner until 2020. I mean, 2 years he went from not running to running across Australia. An outstanding achievement by anyone's measure, I would have thought. That's all in the past. He's got a new book called Fire Up, which is coming out in September. And then in October of 2024, he's going to embark on a new challenge. This challenge is to run, or try and break the record for running 1,000 miles, that is 1,610 kilometres, and the record at the moment stands at 10 days, 10 hours and 30 minutes. And he wants to try and break that record. The record has stood since 1988. I don't know who the person who holds that record is, but it's stood since 1988. Now he wants to do this because of the personal challenge to himself, or for himself, and I'm sure he also wants to raise money for the charities he supports, which are mainly to do with homeless people. Now, in order to achieve this feat, he's going to need to run, you can do the maths yourself, but it works out he's going to need to run 160 kilometres a day, every day for 10 days. Now, to put that in perspective, that is about 4 marathon events every day for 10 days. And this challenge, he is going to run around a 400 metre athletics track at a sports field in Sydney. And so that works out at something like 400 laps a day. Now, in this case, he doesn't even have the luxury of saying, well, at least I'll get to see some scenery or see some interesting places. He's going to go round and round and around the same track. And the only thing he's going to do to vary that is every 30 minutes he's going to change from running clockwise to anti-clockwise. And the reason for that is to avoid overuse of one particular set of leg muscles when making the turns on the track. Now, Brockman says he doesn't really like running. He doesn't, but he does it because he likes the idea of challenging and pushing himself, and he likes to get to that point where the pain kicks in and he's able to run through the pain. And I wouldn't suggesting to anyone that they do that. There's a difference between discomfort and real pain. And when you're in real pain, that's a message from your body that maybe you should stop. He had things like muscle injuries, toenails fell off, and other sorts of horrible things. Now, he reckons it's going to take him something like 17 hours on a good day, every day, to do this 160 k's, and on a bad day you might need 22 hours of the day to do it in. So on a good day he's going to have 7 hours of recovery time, sleep, feed, shower, etc., and generally refresh, replenish his body. And on a bad day he's going to have 2 hours. He plans to sleep in the grandstand at the sports field so that he can roll out of bed, put on his shoes and start running. And on the bad days he'll hardly have time for a massage or a decent meal before he starts off running. And of course, if he has a bad day and decides I just can't do it today, it means he's got to do extra the next day. He's got a support team, or rather I should say, he had a support team for him when he ran across the country. His parents, his girlfriend, physiotherapist, and they towed a trailer, a little dog trailer, behind the bus that they all travelled in, and he got to sleep in that after his day's running. This time, as I said, he plans to sleep in the grandstand. Somebody's worked out, one of the people in his team, that he's going to need 40,000 calories a day to be able to sustain himself. What he does is, he's not going to have time to sit down and morning, eat a bowl of muesli and banana. You know, that's how I guess he's going to be slurping a lot of gels, stuff like that, while he runs. I guess we'll hear much more about it as you do doing it when he starts it, no doubt, and when he finishes it. I wish him all the success in the world. Hope he achieves what he sets out to do. And if he doesn't break the record, it won't be from lack of trying, and if he doesn't break the record, he'll still have done what he wanted, which is to challenge himself and challenge his body and see what it can do. That got me thinking about the two aspects of running that determine whether or not you'll be successful. And I've made some videos before talking about what success might look like as a runner, and it'll be different things for different people. For him it'll be breaking that record. People who are about to compete at the Paris Olympics, it'll be winning medals perhaps, or setting PBs. The people who run any of the other marathons around the world, it would be perhaps winning that marathon getting a podium finish, as they say, finishing well placed in your age group, your gender, or some other measure that you'd use to say, well, that's the kind of success I was looking for. But for most people who are runners, people like myself who just do it, we don't always enter running events. Success might just be doing your daily run and getting it done, finishing it in a certain time, running a certain distance or something. But as I said, there are two, I guess, overriding factors that will determine whether you're successful or not. One is your physical state. That's your fitness, your general health, and so forth. And that can be trained and built up. And so, if you've never run before, then you start to run, you might find that running 100 metres is a real effort, and you excuse me again, huffing and puffing and so forth, and really tired out after your 100 metres, so you walked a bit. So, providing you have no underlying medical conditions or joint issues or whatever, your body can be trained and it will adjust to the demands you make of it when you start to run. And that's why these people who run ultra marathons, which is classed as anything over the standard 42.6 kilometre marathon, that's why they're able to do it. They train themselves and their body adjusts to the demands they put on it. The other side of success as a runner is the mental side. Whether you're running 1k or your first 5k or 10k's or whatever it is, there's a mental side to it. So if you've never run and you decide you're going to run 1 kilometre, that's going to look like a mighty distance. And you're going to train your body by running, walking, running, walking, to the point where you run more than you walk, and before you know it, you have run that whole 1 kilometre, and in the process you've broken that psychological barrier as you thought, that's too far, I can't do that. And then you might say, well, I've run 1, I don't know, see if I can do more. Perhaps you join your local park run, and again you run your first kilometre, and then you've got to take a little bit of a break, and you walk a little while, you run, you walk, it's on, and then one day you run the 5 and you set yourself a PB because it's the first time you'd run the full 5k, and again you've broken that psychological barrier. So perhaps you keep at it and say, well, I'll just do the park run and a couple of little runs during the week and whatever. Other people go, well, I've run the 5, let me see if I can run 10. And again, it seems like a daunting distance. 10 kilometres, wow, I don't know if I can do it. And that's the first thing that probably jumps into your mind, and that's the psychological barrier of saying, I don't think I can do this. Now, I don't know how you prepare or how you overcome that psychological barrier. This guy Brockman, I'm sure he has sports psychologists and people like that can get inside his head and tell him how to overcome that psychological barrier. And when it's all said and done, he's the guy who's out there doing the running, and the pain creeps in, and the fatigue starts to hit you, or whatever happens, and you start to doubt yourself and think, I don't think I can do this. I don't know if I can keep going. In my case, when I'm running, sometimes when it happens to me, I just say, well, let's get to the next corner and then we'll see what happens. You get to that corner and say, well, you got there now, keep going. You get to the next corner and so on. I'm sure lots of other runners do the same thing. They just break the run up into small segments. Now, if you're Nedd Brockman and you're running across another wall, that's a mighty task, and being able to break it up into its small segments and say, well, I'll run to the next white post or the next electricity pole. Except there probably isn't any of either of those things. I'll run to the next intersection. There isn't one of those either. Excuse me. In this case, running the 400 metres, 400 metre track, he might say to himself, and I'll run till I get to the next bend. And he'll know that's only 200 metres, and he's still got 158 point whatever it is kilometres to go to finish his day's work. So look out for stories about Nedd. I read this story in the Good Weekend, which is the magazine of the Sydney Morning Herald. I'm sure once he gets started there'll be news coverage, and there'll be no doubt news coverage when he finishes. As I said, I wish him every success. I hope he achieves what he set out to do. Thank you for watching, listening. Have a good day. And we're about 3 k's into this run, I think. I'll catch you in the next video.